So, after a year, I'm finally going back to Crash. Why did it take me this long to return? Simple. I wanted enough time to mentally prepare myself for this game. The last Crash game exclusive to a Sony console and the first to not be developed by Naughty Dog. Dark times are ahead, my friends. Welcome, retro gamers, to take it or leave it.
Now, I know you might be asking something, so allow me to answer. The reason why I wanted to mentally prepare myself for this game is 100% because I just really didn't want to play it. Ripping the bandage off right now, I do not like Crash Bash. Even after playing it for this video, I still really didn't like it. I view this game as one of the worst in the series, and this is the very first entry ever made without the original devs. That is not a good sign at all.
I just can't wrap my head around this game. What's worse is that this game has an extreme fandom that swears the angels that this game is underrated. Interesting take.
I will be skipping the development history because there is no history. There is no info on what happened behind the scenes, how the devs were treated, nothing. So let's grab our pogo sticks and jump into Crash Bash. Oh no.
Sony Computer Entertainment America presents a Universal Interactive Studios production, developed by Eurocom Entertainment Software. Crash Bash!
We begin with a scuffle between two planks of wood. Aku Aku and Uka Uka are fighting over evil and good and who is stronger. What?
Already, I'm poking fun at this game. We just started!
Prepare to fight!
No, Uka Uka. The ancients would not allow it. There can be no malice between us.
Yeah, I've got nothing.
So since they can't fight because of the ancients, they instead come up with the brilliant idea of kidnapping their friends and force them to fight to the death just to prove which side is superior.
Were the writers fucking drunk when they wrote this?
But damn it all to hell, Uka Uka has too many players and Aku Aku can't be asked to bring, oh I don't know, Polar or Pura with them. So then he forces his brother to give up 2 of his players to make this a more fair contest. You know, you could have just brought in more characters from the universe to be in the good team. Plus, shouldn't Brio be in the good team? I mean, yeah, he was on Cortex's side in the first game, but not in the second, which was the last time we've seen him.
I have an answer/theory to why that is. I personally believe that the writers of this game don't actually know anything about the franchise's timeline. They probably know the names of the characters and their personalities, and that's about it. I strongly believe that if you were to go back in time, meet these writers in person when they were writing the story, and ask them what happened in the previous 4 games, I bet you, and I really bet you, that they wouldn't be able to answer that. Why else do you think they wrote that Ancients plot hole as a reason why Aku Aku and Uka Uka can't fight, despite them fighting in Crash 3, along with them contradicting Brio's actions in Crash 2, and putting him back on the bad side? But then we have my favorite example. Rillaroo. Yes, I am talking about Gorilla Monkey Anus Face. So the reason why he's here is because Eurocom genuinely thought that there were no other bad guys to use from the Naughty Dog games. Let that sink in. They did such a little amount of research that they didn't even know that Pinstripe and Entropy existed. There is, of course, also Engine and Ripperoo, but they were used as obstacles in minigames. So I'll let that slide, but these other two are not in this game in any capacity, because they quite obviously didn't know that they existed. Two of the main boss characters. This is info that a child can find. This game's story just reminds me of Secret Agent Clanks. Unless you have not played that game, you would know that any comparisons to that game's story is a bad thing.
And that really is the extent of the story. It's just a bad guy and good guy forcing their friends to fight to the death to prove whether or not good or evil is better. You can argue that I am nitpicking with this game's story, but I don't think that that's true. These are all things that the writers included, and it doesn't take a superfan to realize these plot holes. In fact, I can easily call attention to another big plot hole where if you play as the bad team, you still have to fight the bosses, even though they are probably on Uka Uka's side, since they are also bad guys, along with Uka Uka being one of the obstacles in a minigame. By that logic, shouldn't they be helping the bad team? But story is the least of our worries. The gameplay is what will make me lose my shit. So, warning to some people, if you love this game and hate seeing people shit on it, then I suggest you leave. But, if you are cool with that, then let's continue. This is officially the second game I'm reviewing that is a party game, which means that the awful adventure mode isn't the only way of experiencing this game. There is tournament mode and battle mode. Though I didn't get footage of the other two modes, I will go over them at the end of this section. The adventure mode is the star of the show here and highlights all of this game's issues, especially as a single player experience. To start, we have the character selection. And the roster is pretty okay, other than of course Rillaroo. Any character on the blue line is on the good team, and any character on the red line is on the bad team. All these characters also have their own unique stats, and come with their own costs and benefits throughout the game. So, what's the point of having two teams when you can only choose one character for the whole thing? In CTR's case, you can just say that everyone is competing. But in the game where these guys are supposed to be working together, then yeah, why is it like this?
Still though, not important enough to put that much attention on. So how about we go into the collectibles?
Starting with the trophies, these are the main collectibles in the game. You get them by playing and finishing a level, and you need all of them to progress.
Sounds very simple in concept. Except that there's one thing about this process that I purposely left out.
You don't win and get out. You have to win a match 3 times in one sitting to get the trophy. Now, these levels on their own don't really take that long to finish, but if you actually try to play this for yourself, you will realize that playing the same minigame 3 times in a row at least is way more mind-numbing than it sounds. Especially when the early ones tend to drag a little. The other issue is that the other players' wins count as well, and thus will cost you more time plus another replay of the same minigame.
You can probably guess where I'm going with this, and you are right. Having to win 3 times for a trophy combined with 2 additional matches won by all 4 characters can result in you having to play a minigame 9 times in a row. I am certain that every other time a reviewer has brought this up, they didn't actually show this happening to them. So, you might be skeptical of that sort of thing happening without any proof. Well, that changes today. I think I am one of, if not the first reviewer on YouTube that proves that yes, this can in fact happen. Observe.
Damn, man, look at that, look!
I didn't Photoshop anything, didn't crop anything. I really did end up having to replay this minigame 9 times in a row. I've got nothing clever or funny to say. This speaks for itself. So, now that you hopefully got a good idea of how much of an issue this is, allow me to steer towards another issue with the adventure mode, because the trophies are not the only collectibles required for progression. No, instead what you need to do is to replay every minigame at least 2 more times to get the gem and the crystal. The gem challenges are the same thing as the normal rounds, only with having either a stricter time limit and usually with an inconvenience only on you, like having less goal points for the Pong levels or having more laps to clear in the micro racing levels. The crystal challenges typically give the level an altered look, with having a totally custom inconvenience that only affects you. So the same kind of thing as the gems, only it makes the levels look different and having the inconvenience be different from level to level. The inconveniences on the gem challenges, on the other hand, stay the same from start to finish. It does not take a genius to realize that this is just playing through the same levels yet again, just to extend the length of the adventure mode. Why that they thought that this was acceptable to not have these as optional is a mystery. Playing through this game with the trophies is slow and uneventful enough, but this just gets rid of any kind of flow the game once had. Not to mention that some of the gimmicks in the crystal challenges are fucking brutal, and the opponent AI makes it even worse. It would be a lot more fun and interesting if the crystal handicaps affected everyone, including you. That would have made the challenges way more tense and worthwhile in my opinion. But we don't get those types of happy endings. No, instead we get endings that give us an adventure mode that, by the time you reach the second hub world, starts to rely on luck way more than actual skill, and I am not exaggerating. Very much of my success in the late game did not feel like I won because I was good, but instead because the game finally decided to let me win. Every round is completely random, and the Pong stages in particular can be almost impossible because of how fast the balls move. Some of the gem crystals and even trophies took me a lifetime to do because of this. For instance, the trophy in Embolism took me, and I'm not kidding, almost half an hour to do. Almost half an hour of this, and I won through luck. The game just decided when I could win enough times for me to get the trophy, but oh my god, it was absolute torture the whole way through. In a lot of levels, generated luck is something that stays in the game very often. The only levels that I did well in were the pogo ones, but even then they were still not that fun to do due to how slow and boring they are.
You know that one time where I had to play a Pong level 9 times in a row? Well, I didn't actually win the 9th round legitly. You see, I was so enraged that this happened to me, and so unwilling to play this Pong game for another round, that I resorted to another solution. I cheated. No shame whatsoever.
Look, if the game is not going to play fairly with me, then why should I play fairly with the game? Plus, I spent enough time on these Pong levels anyway, because another thing that makes the adventure mode so bad is the repeat minigames. As if doing the trophies, crystals, and gems wasn't bad enough, the devs thought it would be a great idea for every warp room to have the same minigame types over and over and over again, with small changes to the mechanics here and there. No matter how good these minigames are, can we all argue that this is just lazy recycling and nothing else? All that this does is just extend the length of the game, and that is all. Now, I am aware that Eurocom was also not safe from tight deadlines when it came to making these minigames, but the solution to that is to make the adventure mode shorter. At the end of the day, the adventure mode should not be the only thing for players to do, so making it shorter with the main selling point being just the minigames would have made this game better by default.
A common argument I hear in this game's defense is that the adventure mode is not the main attraction, and not important. Whenever you guys hear someone say that, do me a favor and do not fucking believe them. Because if you are someone who hasn't played this game yet and heard someone say that the adventure mode is not important, I can confidently say that you are being lied to.
If you just want to play tournaments with your friends and nothing else, you will only have access to the first 4 minigame types. You may get access to all of the alternative versions too, but that is still less than half of the content. Compare that to CTR, where the only things locked out from you are like 5 or 6 characters and 2 tracks. It was enough for it to not feel like you were missing out on much, while simultaneously making you want to actually unlock them. In Crash Bash, however, Adventure Mode is basically mandatory for you to actually get your money's worth. I am aware that since I am emulating, I can just unlock everything with the cheats, but those are cheats, not a part of the intended experience. Compare that to the previous 4 games where I used exactly 0 cheats in the years of experience I have with them. If all that the Adventure Mode was just winning once level by level and no repeats, then the Adventure Mode would have been so much better. There is of course the bullshit nature of the game, but it's mainly the repetitive gameplay that makes the Adventure Mode lose any ounce of enjoyment that it once had.
Is there anything positive I can say in regards to this game's Adventure Mode strictly on a gameplay level? Honestly, no. Again, that is speaking on gameplay. There is one thing about the Adventure Mode that I do respect. Overall, this should be used as an example of how not to make an Adventure Mode in a party game. All that this is a roadblock from the actual reason why you would want to play this game.
Speaking of which, I might as well briefly touch upon the multiplayer. I decided to bring 3 controllers with me to my college and plug them into some PCs and booted up a PS1 emulator via browser and played multiplayer that way. After about an hour of playing multiplayer, what is my verdict?
It's fine. It's pretty fun. Definitely the best way to play this game. The luck-based elements are made a lot less enraging, and the chaotic nature gives the multiplayer a decent pace. However, that doesn't excuse there not being that many minigames to choose from, even after unlocking most of them. Plus, a lot of the minigames really aren't that fun anyway.
I will not be going over every individual minigame, just every theme, because I more or less got to experience all of them, minus 3 in Warp Room 5. Could I have put in a cheat to experience all of them? Well, yeah, but I didn't feel like spending more time in this game. The first type is the Pong minigame. When this one gets crazy, it gets downright close to impossible to manage where the balls are going to end up because they move so fast with very few frames. Also, fuck endballism. I know I went over it earlier, but this is easily the worst level in the Adventure Mode. With all of that in mind, this is still one of the better minigame types because it can be fun with its fast pace, especially in multiplayer. The next is the Polar Bear stages, where you have to charge your opponents off the edge. These can be sort of fun with all the power-ups or curses to keep track of, but what makes this one of the worst minigames is from a singular teeny tiny problemo. The camera angle is fucking abysmal. This makes it very hard to see where you are, and it's also very hard to lose your character if everyone is in one place. Could it have seriously killed them to make the camera angle a little higher up? What made them think that this was acceptable? Charging into the abyss is almost inevitable due to the lack of depth perception. The pogo levels are next. You paint the level and grab your points with the item boxes. They are not as bullshit as the previous 2. I managed to beat all of the trophies on my first go, so I don't think that luck isn't as significant as skill in these per se, but that doesn't stop them from being some of the slowest and mind-numbing minigames I have ever played. Next is the fighting games, which is probably the best minigame type in the game, because it just starts and you fight to the death. It is actually quite fun most of the time, and a lot of my failures felt like something I did wrong. Drain Bash is the best one in multiplayer, just from the awesome power-ups alone. Next is the tank levels. Now these would probably be fun in multiplayer, but are the absolute worst in single player. The first 2 are a pain in the ass from the restrictive movement, and the fact that if you get cornered from both sides, you've pretty much lost. The third one isn't so bad with the ability to move freely, but the lack of cover can also be a bitch when there's almost nowhere to block the firepower from. Next is the dash levels. You just race around the simple loop with tank steering, so left always moves you left and right always moves you right. You can also knock the other racers off by using missiles or dashing into them after getting Wumpa Fruit for that. I may not like how they play, but these are one of the better minigames from its faster pace. Unless you're getting knocked off multiple times in a row, then it's just a headache. The last minigame is Ring Ding, where you pop balloons. That is all. You can get power-ups to tip the odds in your favor, that's about it. The other 3 consist of hitting mushrooms with mallets. The other 3 consists of hitting mushrooms with mallets, blowing up barrels, and throwing gems at a target while riding on dragons. Now, placed under multiplayer circumstances, fun can be had in these, but at the end of the day, this is still not a lot of content when you think of the amount of minigames in Mario Party. That game, by the way, came out almost 2 years before and on arguably weaker hardware. What is this game's excuse?
Well, you know, for as bad as the adventure mode is, and as lackluster of a multiplayer party game as this is, at least the boss fights are alright. Speaking of which,
if there is anything, and I mean anything, that this game does better than CTR, is the boss fights. CTR's bosses were easily one of the weaker parts of the game, and were all beaten in the exact same way. Here, though, I can actually tell that Eurocom tried. Now, none of these are new minigame types, but I don't mind that since they use the pre-existing minigames in a creative way to make them work for only one opponent. Papu Papu is an easy first boss, but is much better than his boss in the first game regardless. You avoid his attacks and then kill these tiny crashes, and you will have a chance to throw a block at him. Like I said, it's not a great fight, but I respect it a lot with how it still steadily rises the difficulty and requires a slight bit of concentration. The Bearminator is a contender for the best boss in the game. It takes the frustrating mediocre polar bear minigame and actually makes it fun. You get these metal polar bears that try to fry you with a missile and then later try to charge you off the platform. After that, you get access to a missile to shoot right into the Bearminator's face. As you finish each phase, the platform gets smaller and more of those metal bears appear at once. This is just a fun and fair boss that takes this annoying minigame and gives it new life. This is honestly a pretty underrated boss fight. Boss 3 with the Komodo brothers is the other contender for the best boss. It takes the tank game and it turns it into a multi-phase boss fight where you take down the brothers' base as their defenses attack you. After taking down their base, they try to take you down themselves, with the last phase being quite tricky and easy to die to. Good thing that they put a checkpoint here. The final boss against Oxide is fine. The first part is just trial and error. You fly through this area with a bunch of annoying obstacles to avoid or destroy. The final part is just a reuse of the ball game, which also took a lot of tries. This part seems to have adaptive difficulty, oddly enough. In about 4 or 5 tries, I went from being owned to coming out on top with ease. I mean, I'm glad that it's there, but it's still kind of out of place for a game as unforgiving as this. So apart from the final boss, I think that bosses as a whole are good. They are fun, fast-paced, and aren't bullshit. They're refreshing changes of pace in the adventure mode, that's for sure.
it's just a shame that the visual presentation by comparison does not have the same consistent quality.
I guess that's a little harsh. The graphics are okay, I suppose. The environments look pretty good. It's colorful, well-textured, and has a decent amount of detail. In terms of the arenas, they did a pretty good job at translating Naughty Dog's style. Where Crash Bash's visual presentation fails, however, is with the character models. What the fucking hell happened here? Just look at Crash, he looks worse than he did in the first game. Look at those awful faces that Cortex keeps making. Look at how derpy Koala Kong looks. Dingodale's snout looks like a fucking Subway sub. And Rillaroo, everything's wrong with them! The only decent model is Brio, whereas everyone else looks very cheaply modeled. I know that this is still PS1 hardware we are working with here, but this came out the same year as Spyro 3. The difference in graphical quality is night and day. It's just very unfortunate to go from this to this. At least the soundtrack is pretty good. Not as good as the music in the other 4 games, but it's probably my favorite part of the game, next to the boss fights. So, getting back into the adventure mode only, we get all the trophies, crystals, and gems needed to fight Oxide. We beat him, and Uka Uka has a tantrum because he lost to the good guys.
It cannot be! What sort of trickery was used to defeat I, the great Uka Uka?
No trickery, no cheating.
Well, there is that one round where I did actually cheat, but yeah, we probably shouldn't tell him. Aku Aku puts the crystals away after finding out that Uka Uka tried to steal them for himself.
So if the whole point was to steal the crystals, then why didn't you just steal the crystals? You could have easily done that at any point of the game, but you didn't take the opportunity. Who cares anymore? Let's just finish this game and forget that it exists.
So, the crystals are put away and Uka Uka is not happy, let's just say.
You know what that reminds me of? This.
So Aku Aku opens up some kind of vacuum and Uka Uka gets sucked away, and that's the game. Great, we're done. Oh no, we're not done, because now we unlock the relics where I have to win against hard AI 2 times in a row. These are required to lock the rest of the minigames.
You failed.
I'm not doing this shit. I would rather play Action 52 than 200% Crash Bash. Hell, even that's too nice.
Anyway, that was Crash Bash. Now you get why I don't like this game?
As a multiplayer party game, it's okay, and as a single-player adventure mode, it's terrible. That's a shame too, because the idea of a Crash Bandicoot party game is a good one. Crash has enough characters and locations to make fun boards and minigames out of, so to see that idea go to waste is more depressing if anything. And believe you me, I could have gone a lot harder on this game. What is concerning is that this is the very first game in the franchise not made by Naughty Dog, and they drop the ball this hard and this fast. Kinda sets the tone for the rest of Crash's life in a way. On the scale of quality, Crash Bash will be getting a 3 out of 10. Leave it.
So now that we are back with Crash, it only makes sense for us to keep going for a little bit. So stay tuned for the next review, for most likely next year, as we cover Crash Bandicoot's first official step into the next generation. This was Max Rabb, you just watched. See you on the other side.